Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. We are now, 10 days? 10 days away from deadline. And we're still waiting for the first domino to fall. We'll talk about that. Eck will be here in a few minutes. Russ will start with the pre-show. Go ahead.
So we're talking, we always talk about free agency, and it looks like free agency has hit the world of professional wrestling because now it looks like the Undertaker is a free agent.
Really?
So he has scrubbed the WWE from his profile on Twitter, and he's out there signing autographs, and he's earning or asking for $25,000 an hour, not from people, but from organizations that want to have him there. So, and right now people are pretty excited. I will say this: I saw his autograph prices, and it's actually Johnny Manziel in some cases is charging more, which I had to laugh at, but Mick Foley charges half. So I guess the question is, because the Undertaker's never really done this, is he worth double what Mick Foley gets, or would you go cheap like me and go Mick Foley because you believe he's more personable, and at least if you're getting the autograph, you think Mick will, chat with you a bit, where I'm not sure if the Undertaker will.
I wouldn't go with either one of them because I'm a cheapskate.
You have to pick one, Mike.
I'm a cheapskate. So, but I mean, is this like his retirement plan? Because he doesn't have like a pension from the WWE. Like he can't go to wrestle for Ring of Honor Wrestling or some other organization. Or
well, I think he can now if he wanted to, but he can't really move that well. So even if he shows up at WrestleMania, like I think it would just be as an in-ring kind of moment where he, beats a guy up for 2 minutes and 2 seconds rather, and that's it. So
and then he comes alive again.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be all about the entrance and him just hitting somebody a few times, and that's it. But I was a little staggered by the $25,000 an hour. I don't know. I would assume that makes more. That's more than a rocket scientist.
I was going to say I would guess that's above minimum wage.
Yes.
So hang on, the guy who worked in an industry that is entirely scripted and fixed and has no meaningful skill set outside of being huge can charge $25,000 an hour to show up.
He could walk on the
I don't want to say there's something wrong,
Peter.
But there's something wrong.
Peter, yeah, but you could walk. He could walk on the top wire of the ring post. Can you?
Well, if I spent 28 years practicing, probably.
Well, I mean, if you get all steroided up like some NFL guys or baseball guys,
a lot of bloggers are steroided.
Yeah, I'm ripped.
There's no question about that.
But it's like I have seen wrestlers who after their retirement look nothing like the guys that were in the ring. And if you try to tell me that they weren't like chemically enhanced, it's like look at David Ortiz now.
Oh yeah, David Ortiz is like 175 pounds.
Yeah, look at Mark Schlereth, the former.
Look at Jeff Saturday.
Jeff Saturday is a good example too.
But the thing is, these guys are like now 190 pounds, and they were 280 when they were in the NFL as offensive linemen or defensive line. I mean, it's ridiculous. But
I will say this: look, wrestlers are great athletes. They still get hurt. They do entertain, and where I never say that sports is entertainment because it's not. Sports is competition. Wrestling is entertainment. So he's getting paid. Similarly, I would say to a certain genre of actors. Like, I don't know how you break down. Tom Cruise is probably making something ridiculous like $100,000 an hour. So,
I mean, honestly, you're right. And in this,
maybe he's making Bryan Cranston money. I'm not sure what it is.
In this day and age, with everything that's going on with computers and all that fancy dancy stuff, you don't think for a second. I like to sound just trying to sound as old as I possibly can. No, but you don't think for a second there that
you don't have to try act.
These guys aren't paid out. These guys aren't getting paid like what they are. I mean, what they're worth. Like, people aren't figuring out like this guy's earning this much money.
Well, he is showing pictures of himself with a private jet or a rented private jet, so at least he's not trying to hide it. I don't blame the guy.
Right. I mean, there's nothing. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I know. Listen, I don't disagree. I was surprised by the post, I looked into it. I bring it to the show. That's what I do. I bring it, and then we decide what's right or wrong. And Peter's already decided. So there we go.
Right, we decide. We are the deciders. Whatever we say goes, and that's that's officially known by the
tribunal here. Yeah,
Geneva conferences have given us that right.
Right.
On that note,
oh God, I know.
Okay, Jan, you follow me.
You got it.
Always follow Mike. Okay. All right, it's been a long couple days. All right, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
Someone pointed this out to me the other day before I start. Someone pointed out to me the other day that, see, we have like the way Google Hangouts works, is there's not like a cameraman, and makeup artist on the other side of the thing here. We have a little webcam and a square that I can see you guys in. So my camera was over there and my square was over there. What was happening was I was looking like this all the time, where I was looking at I was looking like this and talking to you guys, like,
Okay. Let me just briefly say this, because you mentioned this, and this is driving me crazy.
Yeah,
if you're watching like the Yes Network or other New York or other cable stations, and there is a commercial, a law firm commercial featuring the real Erin Brockovich. And she's talking to the camera, and for like 15 seconds, they go to a camera where she's staring into like the ether, staring into space.
Yeah.
And they keep. I've never seen this in friggin' commercials before, and it's driving me nuts. Stare at the friggin' camera.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the Office stuff, like from filming The Office, when someone would talk about, yeah, well, I think that was an interesting thing, that kind of stuff.
Oh my God, it's so distracting. Anyway, let's start the show.
There you go. All right, alrighty. Let's begin. Ready?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
He's trying to look up the date. Just do it.
Yes.
It's
cheating.
Hello, Hockey World.
2019.
It's Friday. All right, let me start again. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, February 15th, 2019.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Jan Levine.
I'm Peter Tessier in, used to be formerly balmy Winnipeg. It's Arctic Vortex again.
I'm Russ Cohen, and I want to say happy birthday to Matt Sundin.
Hi, I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I have to admit, Russ, that when I saw that you said Matt Sundin was going to be in the pre-show, being that you're Russ and being that you mentioned Matt Sundin, I'm like, oh, crap, did Matt Sundin die? So thank you.
I wasn't wishing for that. But I was wishing for.
Russ is always the person who tells us when people die. That's why I was like.
But I am wishing for him to waive his no trade clause. But continue.
Oh, you just want Wendell Clark back, so keep quiet over there.
You'll be waiting until 2019 for him to waive that no trade clause. I think I said that back.
Oh wait, we're here.
2000 and I said that back in 2000 and whatever that this was happening.
Oh wait.
So those of you who are in the chat room, we have a chat room, guys, and if you go to this website, if you go to the YouTube, if you're what you're watching now, click on the YouTube thing, you'll see a pop-up chat that appears on the right hand side. You can go to that. And we have a lot of great people in there always, and they're always helping us out through the show, because they know everything between all of them. There's a little game we play in the chat room every day that I switch my jerseys around in the back, and today I tried to screw some people up by moving some around, but keeping the same jerseys back there. And but they did get the new jersey today, which was pretty easy, which is the Eklund jersey. Which is
I was gonna say, it's like, yeah,
that should be pretty obvious, right? So there you have it. So, but yeah, if you go in there, you get some points, you can win some prizes, all kinds of fun stuff. Anyway,
yes,
Mike's getting praised today for wearing maroon, which is
well, because it's not gray.
It's not gray. All right,
gray is a universal color.
It's the universal color of
the universal non-color.
Black. Yeah.
All right, here we go. 10 days. 10 days.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Well, I wish, here at Hockey Buzz, we wish it would go on forever because it's nice. It's good traffic.
I write one more Kevin Hayes and Matt Zuccarello blog, and I may get impaled on my website.
Yeah, I know. And so actually, it was so funny. Like, some people were like complaining about our one of our bloggers writing too much, and I was just like, I've heard everything now. It's like, if someone's writing too much, what the hell is wrong with you people? Like, why would you have a problem with them writing too much? Like, that is astonishing to me. So anyway, just
Well, it must be me because I write every day.
Not you. It's not you.
Just say it's Mike.
It's not you, Mike. It's no one on this panel. But
I've written every day for 3.5 years, through the summer, through the winter, through storms.
All right, I admit it. It's Russ.
We need to take you somewhere Mike, to find out what's wrong.
It's Russ.
Russ is writing too much, and that's what I'm going to about.
That must be it.
All right. Here we Mike's 50 Shades of Grey. I like that. All right. Okay. So
Dakota Johnson, come on down.
Miller's 50 Shades of Grey, the worst sequel ever. All right. Here we go. All right. So we're 10 days from the trade deadline, and we're also on a Friday, which is a big time to do crazy things because Friday is the typical day that you do stuff when you want to bury it. Okay, this goes back to newspaper days, and so obviously it still adheres today. Someone told me about one time about like this doesn't apply anymore. It absolutely does apply because the internet is where things are reported now, and the internet is more crowded Monday through Friday when people are at work because all you people are bums. You're just bums for watching the show right now, right? So that's what's happening. You're just taking off time from work and you're watching the show, which we love.
Way to build our viewership.
Right. But here you go. So Saturday and Sunday, not as many people on Twitter, not as many people doing stuff and talking about stuff. So yeah, if you want to do something crazy, you want to say, trade a player that's not going to be a popular trade, you do it tonight. You do it Friday night, the 10 days before the deadline, because this gives you time to make something happen. This gives you time to get in front of it because there's too many, as I wrote the other day, too many top six forwards out there for the first time ever.
Friday is also a good day to get a fish fry.
Right. But nice little Catholic reference, Mike. Appreciate that.
Can we mute him?
Yeah, we can do that. All right. So here we are. So we have Friday. We are the Friday, but next Friday is also going to be a big trade deadline day. And of course, trades will be going down as I am suiting up to play hockey. Can tell this quick story real quick. I'm going to play in the media game at the outdoor game. So the media game, Russ, I know you're a wimp and you're not playing in it.
I'm not, because if there's ringers, I'm not good enough to play with ringers.
I am not good enough to play with you, but I'm playing in it.
No, you're way better than me. Come on, be fair. I only started playing ice hockey like 10 years ago.
Well, no, that's not.
About 10 years ago, yeah.
I started playing when I was 30, so like 20 years ago. But anyway, so what it is there's a media game that takes place at usually where the winter classes are, the outdoor games, the All-Star games, all these things. The media gets together and plays the night before the game. So we're playing. Obviously, the outdoor game is Saturday in Pittsburgh and Philly. So media's playing on Friday. Well, I haven't played hockey goalie in about 7 years. Okay, so as a goalie going up against some of these ringers, Russ, that is pretty frightening. So I'm going to look terrible. Mike, I wish I could.
Who's videotaping this?
I wish I could write that, Peter. I wish I could write what you just said.
So what you're saying?
I'm videotaping it. I am going to videotape it.
No, so what you're saying is that you're gonna be as good as Michael Neuwirth.
What I'm going to say is, if anyone knows how to get in shape in 7 days, let me know. All right,
cleansed.
You got to cut weight. You got to sit in a sauna and a rub.
What am I going to do?
Get an entire bottle of Benefiber and just down it.
Like, there was a rumor that Eric Lindros was going to play in this game the other day.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have to play. I love playing it. I'm hoping that I'm the backup goalie, like that. I'm like that. They have 2 goalies already. That it's all good. And then I come in and take some warm-ups, skate around, look around the beautiful arena, maybe jump in for 5 minutes. But anyway,
the Bunny LaRock of the media.
Right.
Think about it. If Eric Lindros is playing in this game, he's going to look for the smallest guy in the ice and crush him in the corner. That's what he always did.
True just said in the chat room, I'll be better than Neuwirth because I'll actually be on the ice. That's true.
Wear your Wayne Stevenson jersey.
So, of course, I have a Wayne Stevenson helmet. I do. I have a Wayne Stevenson. I was going to wear that. Anyway, so here you go. So just really quick, I'm sorry for bothering you guys with this boring information, but it's kind of funny. So yesterday I decided I'm going to go and play open hockey, but there's 2 different kinds of open hockey at Hatfield Ice, which is near where I live. One is called Pucks and Sticks, which is from 10 to noon, and the other is open hockey, which is from noon to 2:30. So Pucks and Sticks is where you can just go, and it's not a game. You just skate around. You can shoot.
Jimmy.
Right, and so there's no real it's not organized. It's perfect for what I was doing because I haven't been on the ice in 8 years. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get out there, and I'm like, my skates are like, I'm like trying to like sand the rust off of them, and
I did that already with mine.
You know that move. So I'm out there, and I go out there, and there's like 6 guys out there. I take my daughter who's off school, so she goes with me, which is fun. And then so I've got 6 guys out there, and they're all, I gotta go right up to them and I explain them, and they're all like thrilled to see a goalie. Like having a goalie, this is like incredible because you can shoot at a goalie, right? So that's great. Otherwise, and I tell them right away, I'm like, listen, guys, this is the deal, and I tell them exactly what's happening. I said I have a week to get to feel like I can do this again, and I don't know, so just go easy on me. Of course, they didn't. They and I found out something about kids and they were great kids, and I might be playing open hockey with them in a couple hours. I might go today at 12. But because I have to play as much as I can. But the good thing, but I learned something about kids in these days as a goalie, a move that gets them almost every time, which does not exist anymore, and that is the poke check. It's funny,
there's a few goalies that do it, but not everybody does it.
Yeah, so because of the butterfly and because of positioning and way you like normally, poke check has really gone out of style. And these kids, so the first couple times they came in, they just I wasn't poke checking. I mean, they were schooling me with their, I mean, I tell them I'm playing the media that they think I'm some kind of superstar, and then they see me play and they realize I'm not. So, and I'm like saying, if I doesn't go well today, I'm like, I don't even know I'm going to do this thing. I'm at that point, right? So, anyway, so the one guy comes in, and then I'm like, I can start getting pissed off because I'm like, just take some shots, guys. I just want shots. I don't want you to come in and like stick handle around me. I just want shots. I want to feel the puck. So one guy comes in and I poke check him. Next guy comes in, I poke check him. Next guy comes in, I poke, like 3 in a row. No one knows how to handle this. And it was like I was some kind of magical person because I could poke check. What is that like? That's the funniest thing because it's just like, that's what I was taught to do. But let's move on to rumors. Anyway, here we go. All right, so let's get right into the big news today, which I believe is Matt Duchene and the Matt Duchene decision, which I have been told is going to come down today. Now, what does this sound like? A decision will come down soon. We don't know if we'll find out the results of it. I'm not talking about the Mueller probe. I'm talking about the Matt Duchene decision. God. All right, so the Matt Duchene decision, we don't know if we're going to find out exactly what that decision is because there's mixed feelings on whether or not it behooves the Senators to have that out there or not. Because in a normal world, you probably wouldn't want that out there because then you suddenly have to trade him. Well, but in a world of all these top 6 forwards, I think you got it. I think you got to put it out there.
Well, if news doesn't get out, it's one or the other. It's either he's signing and he signs, or he's on the block. So if you don't hear an 8-year contract for $8.5 million, then he's going to market. Then I'm
pretty sure. Yeah, I'm with Mike. I think if we hadn't heard anything by now, it's probably not a yes, because usually yeses come a little quicker than this. He obviously has some hesitation, and so I think we're finding out that he's not re-signing.
And this is the thing, Eck. I mean, there are things in favor for Duchene staying in Ottawa in the sense that he's from I think it's Haliburton, Ontario, which is relatively close to Ottawa. I think 3 or 4 hours away. So he likes Ottawa. They'll give him the 8-year deal. They'll probably pay him more than anybody else will pay him. But the problem is that they're going to suck for 2 years. They have a lot of young kids. They want veterans to be the influence on those young kids. They're Batherson and Kachuk and Shabbat and Logan Brown and Colin White. They're steeped in good prospects. But the problem is that none of these veteran guys want to spend the primes of their career in a team that's going to be wallowing outside of the playoffs and reorganizing. So unless they overpay him, he's gone. So I think we're going to hear nothing today other than no resolution to it. That means you start picking places for Duchene to get traded in the next week.
Yeah, I mean maybe. I mean I here's the thing about Matt Duchene. Like Matt Duchene is not. He hates being in trade rumors, okay? And and he's such a good guy that you hate putting him in trade rumors.
He is a good guy, there's no question.
It's like and I've written about Matt Duchene in trade rumors for what feels like a solid 5 years. Like it just feels like forever, like the Matt Duchene trade out of Colorado took forever to happen. Let's not forget, it was like a year and a half that we talked about that. It was 2 trade deadlines, a couple drafts. Yeah. But, we always talked about Matt freaking Duchene, and he's such a good guy, such a peaceful guy, such a happy guy. He's like, and he hates, and I know I've talked to people and I've talked to him, and it's not fun, because it's like, this is what I've got to do, right? And he's the kind of guy, now I believe, part of me thinks that he's the kind of guy who would love the idea of an 8-year deal with a no movement clause where he doesn't have to think about trade rumors ever again.
I think that too, but I happen to think that his number is higher than what Ottawa wants to pay him.
And he could get that Ek if he's traded before the deadline, because if traded to another team, then they can offer him an 8-year deal. Now, I think that the number of players that can draw an 8-year, and you can remember this thing. Duchene, I think, is 28. He was in the Tavares draft. It was Tavares, Hedman, Duchene. So that's 2009. So he's 27 or 28 years old. I don't think any team is offering him an 8-year deal unless it's Ottawa, and Ottawa front loads the deal and gives them heavy signing bonus, and then it's actually a 5 or 6 year deal, and the last 2 years are something they can buy out or something they can walk away from. Nobody else is giving a 28-year-old 8 years. I mean, Tavares got 7.
No, I agree. I agree with you. No one else is getting that.
Do you think that the Duchene signing is tied in any way to the Stone signing? So, for example, if Duchene doesn't see Ottawa wanting to make a commitment to Stone, or can make a commitment to Stone, does that impact his ability or desire to remain with the organization?
That's a great question, and this is what I think is the case on that. I think actually it may be more the opposite, that the Stone signing depends more on the Duchene signing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that what the Senators did is they looked at both of these players and they're like, okay, who is more dependent? And it's Stone's more dependent on Duchene signing. And they said, so let's try to sign Duchene, because that's how I think it went down.
I think it's a one or the other scenario, Peter. I don't think Eugene Melnyk can afford to sign Mark Stone, which the rumor out there is a $10 million 8-year offer, and then sign Duchene for 8.5. I think he's going to sign one, or he's going to sign the other, and the other one gets traded.
I don't think that way until recently, because I think that I'm sorry, Peter. Go ahead. I really feel.
Excuse me. I don't think it makes sense to do both. But Pierre Dorion was in Winnipeg last night.
Yeah,
and because Mark Stone's dad used to be a client of mine, I reached out, and I have some understanding because that there may have been a meeting between the two.
Okay,
which is interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Mark Stone's dad's not actively involved in managing his kids, but he's a really interesting guy. He's very much a type A kind of personality, but I don't think Pierre Dorion needs to come to Winnipeg to look at the Winnipeg Jets to figure out what's going on with them.
I know that the TSN insiders were talking about that yesterday, and they drew the conclusion that Dorion was not only looking at the Jets, but was looking at Manitoba as well. Maybe to check.
He's looking at the Moose as well.
Right, and the connection there. I mean, obviously, we've talked about this week, is the fact that Winnipeg and Nashville are looking to add a top 6 guy, and this is an opportunity for Dorion and Cheveldayoff to talk face to face about that possible deal. Now, I'm only saying this is circumstantial evidence, but I would think if Dorion is going to Winnipeg to talk to Cheveldayoff, that is an indicator to me that Duchene and Stone are not signing there. That why would you travel halfway across the country to talk face to face if you were signing them?
The only thing he's missing in that meeting, though, is he doesn't get to see Christian Vesalainen, who's in the KHL. Yeah. But I'm sure they know him well enough.
Yeah, I think the thing about what Ottawa is doing is they're also putting up a bit of a smokescreen, so they're not being preyed upon, and they're kind of trying to control this. So until you give the green light and go, at least say the right things so that your players don't think you're giving up on them too, and deal with the thing behind the scenes. Let's not let it be a Jim Benning email a trade list of guys who are available out there to everyone. You do this in a stage, and the thing you probably don't want to be doing is managing both players at the same time. You want to get one done, then move on to the next. You don't want to have these two balls in the air and trying that's where you make mistakes. And the sooner you can get one done is probably going to make it easier and more manageable to focus on the other. And whatever done is signed or moved. Right. I think it's going to be moved in both.
Let me tell you something I heard about this. Another thing that kind of plays in this, and then Mike, sorry. The action, I wrote about this today, the actual tell on this whole thing might be the signing of Ryan Dzingel, which is, according to what I've heard, close. And that actually Dzingel, who I thought was the most likely to move, because, and the signing of Ryan Dzingel
is they know they're not going to sign the other two. It makes sense that they're
right.
going to
go right there, right? So that's why it's beginning to begin an interesting tell. And I think that even though we might not know what Matt Duchene's decision is, if we see the Dzingel sign this weekend, we're going to know. We have an idea. We have an idea that Duchene is on the market.
Well, first of all, to Peter's point, I think that the statement that Melnyk released last week was the smokescreen, was basically the cover to give to the organization. If these guys leave, it's their fault because they didn't want to buy into our plan. I think that if Dzingel signs, if they sign him over the weekend, I think it's an indicator that the market is flooded with that second level of unrestricted rental free agent like Zuccarello, like Michael Furland. Though there's a lot of those guys, but the impact guys, the Duchenes, the Stones, the Panarins, there's only 3 or 4 of them, and there's going to be, as you said, Eck, there's going to be a domino effect with them. But that market is so flooded with secondary forwards. Maybe they think it's a better value for them to sign Dzingel than to get a second-round pick for him because he's a better player than that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point, and I think that Dzingel's sitting in a beautiful spot, really. I mean, honestly, like he's just waiting because he is. I mean, what are our thoughts on Dzingel? Is he overhyped right now? Is he Michael Furland? Is he that's the question about, like, he's having a great year.
Lesser than Michael Furland, I think.
I think on a good team he's a third line guy. On that team he's a second line guy.
Right.
Makes sense. I buy that.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously he's the best shot to keep because they can pay him, and if he's happy there, and he's going to be happy there, and if Duchene and Stone are gone, he even moves up to on the depth chart. So,
well, conversely, the name that's gotten mentioned more in the last 48 hours has been Cody Ceci.
Right.
He's an RFA. He's arbitration eligible. He's making $4.3 million. I think he's 2 years away from UFA. It sounds like Melnyk doesn't want to pay, because remember, the qualifying offer would have to be 10%. So that would be close to $5 million on a 1 year or a 2 year deal. And that would walk them right to unrestricted free agency. They've got Shabbat. Now they need more than just Thomas Shabbat on the blue line, but if they're in a position where they don't think they're going to contend or compete in the next 2 years, then you may as well trade CC and get a younger defenseman. He's a right-hand shot. And there's been connection to him in Tampa. Nick Kiprios yesterday on Sportsnet said Toronto, which I highly doubt because I can't see, even when they're in a situation that they're in right now, Ottawa trading.
They're not trading with Toronto
and helping Toronto out. Yeah. So I don't think that's the case. But he's in his mid-20s. He's a good defenseman. He's not going to be ridiculously expensive. I could see teams that need that third, fourth defenseman, especially on a right side, jumping at Cody Ceci and getting him for a pretty decent price.
Here's the thing with Ceci, though. He's from Ottawa. He played with the 67s. Yep. He's drafted by the Sens. He's with the Sens. I don't think he's going to leave until the very last minute because I think he will hold out hope that they give him the contract that he is worth. They're going to need him. Even at 27, that's perfect if they're going to be competitive at that time. If I'm Dorian, I'm trying to keep him. Now, I don't know what the payroll constraints are, but if you're losing Duchene and Stone,
right,
you pay Cody Ceci.
I mean, Russ,
exactly.
It makes complete sense. And if I was, if they were a sort of right-thinking organization, I would completely agree with that. But this is Ottawa.
Right, but I think the thought of this is all because we don't know what's going on with the salaries of Stone and Duchene. I think once that becomes clearer, I think it'll become clearer on Ceci. I think this is a lot of speculation on Ceci because we think Stone or Duchene will be signed. If one of them is signed, then they might not have the money to spend on Ceci. If neither is signed and it's just Dzingel, then obviously they will have the money for Ceci.
Now, Ack, wouldn't you agree at some point?
Follow that along at home. Anyhow,
yeah,
I got that. Yeah,
we got it.
No, Ack, wouldn't you agree at some point? Because like we were talking with Kevin yesterday, and he agreed with the premise that basically Stone, Duchene, and to a lesser extent Panarin is clogging up the works, and that that basically teams are waiting around to see if they can get them or if they're available, and then they'll exercise their plan Bs or plan Cs accordingly. But if this continues like into next week, the clock is ticking. I think some teams are going to say, okay, I got to make my other move now because I may be left hanging out to dry on February 25th.
And that's my next blog, because I was working on just the historically which one of these GMs likes to get stuff done early. And those guys who like to get stuff done early are this year really going to want to get stuff done early. And you're right, and they have already seen that.
I thought Lamoriello would have gotten something done already, because that's usually his pattern.
Rutherford traditionally, and he already made the deal with Florida, but
Rutherford, and Poyle, another one who did get some stuff done already. But you're going to see, but like Fletcher always waits for the deadline, on stuff. I mean, Minnesota never makes trades. Minnesota never made trades early. There is something interesting today coming out that I've been following, that Spurgeon could be headed to Philadelphia. And I'm working on it. I'm working on tracking it down still. We have not, now officially, apparently, according to
Mike Russo.
Mike Russo, thank you. Thanks, Mike, for reading my mind. According to Mike Russo, that they're actually have now decided they're going to be sellers, Minnesota, basically. And I'm not buying that.
I'm not buying that either. I think what's happening there is ownership, who may be watching the show, is trying to prod the guys like Eric Staal and other guys on that team and saying, go ahead, Paul, make the deals you need to make. Yeah. And I think players hear that, and they know they're in playoff position. They're in a playoff spot, and I think they're going to rally now. And I think that's what they're trying to do, is create more of a rally than actually worrying about trading the guys, because I know teams have sort of traded out of playoff position before. The Giants did it once when Kurt Warner was the quarterback and they put in Eli Manning. But in the NHL, it really doesn't happen.
I think it's the three P's. It's prod, but it's also prepare, and it's also being proactive. Because I think what they're doing here is, I think Fenton is going to go out. If we drop out of the race, if we're 4 or 6 points out on February 25th, I need to lay the groundwork to maybe trade Eric Staal, to maybe trade Jonas Brodin. There are a number. I didn't hear Spurgeon, but I'll take your word for it, because Spurgeon's got a year left in his contract. And again, this is a team that lost their number one center, lost their number one defenseman, and they're sort of hanging on by their fingernails to the second wild card with 3 teams within 2 points. So
I've been told Fletcher loves Spurgeon, and the thing about this is, you got to remember that if Minnesota is open for business and the Flyers are indeed trying to buy, that's something you got to look at. You got to look at that connection.
We're looking at the connection, and this is something that will hurt for Flyers fans. In that trade, you're going to lose somebody like Sanheim. Because they're going to want a player who isn't under a big contract. So Gostisbehere is not going to go in that trade, because they're going to not want to take money back. Right. You might lose Travis Sanheim in that deal.
Spurgeon's making over $5 million. He's got a year left in his contract. The only way it makes sense for a cap-strapped Minnesota team is to clear money for a younger body. And Sanheim makes the most sense.
And I think Fletcher would know that he could extend Spurgeon too. I think that would be the only way he would trade a Sanheim.
Right.
But I just want to bring that up. Now, the other thing that's going on in Philly, though, Eck, is there's 2 things. The first one is Philippe Myers hasn't played yet. I know. He hasn't made his NHL debut. He's been up for a little bit. I find that kind of odd, and then I even find it odder that Morin is only on a conditioning assignment, which means he's going to return back to the Flyers in a week or a little more. Yeah. He's only played 3 NHL games. No offense to Sam Morin, but if I have to decide if I'm going to play one of them right now, whether it's Myers or Morin, I'm playing Myers 100% of the time.
That's true. I mean, and that is something you have to. I mean, I think that you have to look at Gordon on this one probably, because Gordon knows both of those players inside out, right? So he knows. I mean, he's had both of them in the AHL. He's coached them, so he probably knows where Myers is.
Myers has 29 points this year. I've seen him play this year. He's really good.
Yeah, me too. And I agree. He's really good. Whether it was. Whether or not Gordon thinks he's the kind of guy that will just benefit maybe from practicing with the Flyers for a week or 2 or something like that. Maybe that's going on.
So tell me how you're going to react if Myers, and I don't know if this is going to happen because Myers could play Saturday, but if Myers is there just to practice with the team and eat popcorn when the game's on, and then Morin comes back from a conditioning assignment and he gets inserted into the lineup,
right?
I don't like that idea.
It's a complete
big deal about Myers being called up too. So it's kind of one of those things you wonder. Like, he was being interviewed on all the Flyers networks and things like that. So
it does no
real the face they sent him back.
It does no benefit to Myers or to Moran being a defenseman in your early 20s to sit in the press box and watch. Now, if I said to Russ before the show, if they're up with the team because they're going to move out a defenseman and they want them to get acclimated to practicing and getting ready to step into the NHL, that's one thing. If they're keeping them up there because they want a taxi squad while they're making a run for the playoffs, that is the ultimate in stupidity. Develop your players, put them in the American Hockey League, and let them play every night.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I agree with you. There's a lot that's changing though with the paradigm of young players in the NHL. It really is all over the place, and it has so much to do with, we've talked about this before, but these guys are better trained than they've ever been before. I mean, we're talking about the first generation of guys who've actually played hockey year round and had paid money to have trainers working with them year round.
Okay, so how did Pietro feel today about that?
Yeah, no, I know, and that sucks,
Well, let me ask.
That's what happens most times.
Let me ask Jan about that, because I mean the Rangers have had Cheeto. They've had Elias Anderson. They've had Howden. Howden's a little older. But, I mean, you're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds playing regularly with the Rangers. I mean, how do you think it's benefited them to play that much this early in their careers?
Man, I think for Howden, he clearly hit a wall. I mean, about 20 games ago. I mean, you can play all you want. But in terms of the step up in the competition, the amount of games you're playing is probably more so guys, when Jimmy Vesey came in, he hit it because in college you only play maybe once a week as opposed to here every weekend. So I think it definitely benefited him. I mean, Hedl, unfortunately, has seen his ice time kind of dwindle a little bit lately. I mean, the viewpoint is I think post-trade deadline he'll get back up to a regular shift. Howden was playing third-line minutes, playing consistent minutes. So from a growth perspective, clearly there's nothing better than being out on the ice and dealing with every single situation, augmented at times by sitting in the press box and watching to see the mistakes you've made or things you pick up. So I think Hedl's definitely benefited. I think he'll benefit more after the deadline. Howden, he's out now injured. I think the hope is when he comes back, he'll be fully refreshed and healthy and get back to where he was. And Anderson, he's right now playing first and second line minutes down in Hartford. So he's the second year in a row he's kind of done that. So I think all three of them have benefited. I don't know if there's a detriment unless if a guy's not able to handle it, and this is what we talked about Carter Hart. If you can't mentally handle the struggles, and you will struggle, in the NHL, we did the pre-show. We talked about Patrick Laine struggling a little bit. If you're not mentally strong enough to handle it, coming to the NHL as an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid and maybe not having success right away, that could tear you down very quickly unless you have the mental capacity to overcome that.
And right now, the top four in the 2018 draft, Russ, I mean, Dahlin he's had some little lulls, but he's been fantastic for the Sabres. Svechnikov has been really good for Carolina. Kotkaniemi, after a slow start, he's playing great with Montreal. And Brady Tkachuk should be a candidate for the Calder. So
these guys are all a level above, just because of the guys that Jan is just talking about. They're all a level above that, all of them.
Right.
That's really the reason why. Hey, Eck, I wanted to bring up something. I'm sure you've got an Islander rumor.
Yep.
But I want to mention something about the Islanders that I said today on SiriusXM because it took them by surprise, and I think Jan will agree with this. So they said, "Hey, Casey Cizikas had scored his 15th goal last night. What do you think about him?" And I said, "I've always loved Casey Cizikas. He's always been a great skater, a hard to play against guy, a high energy guy." And if you're a fan of the opposing team, when he scores a goal, you kind of throw up in your mouth a little bit.
Sure.
I can't argue with that one. No,
see?
no disagreement, because he's not a guy you view as a scorer. So,
and
why is that? I mean, he's been a scorer in his career.
Not like to 50. 15 is his career high by a lot.
Yeah, I know.
He was a scorer in juniors.
Yeah, it's true.
And that line with Clutterbuck and with Martin, I haven't watched as much of the Islanders as I have in the past, but I believe that line is still a unit that they keep together. And that they're not an extremely talented line, but they work their butts off.
Yeah,
they work their butts off, and I mean it's something where. Sorry, Jan. You had to switch rooms.
Yeah, switch rooms. Sorry.
Okay, no, but they worked their butts off in the construct of the Barry Trotz team. That line is extremely effective, and a matchup problem for teams that put out like a third line that's a skilled line. They're going to run those guys into the boards, and in a playoff situation, a guy like Cizikas and Clutterbuck and Martin are extremely valuable. So, I mean, I don't know if I would want to face the Islanders in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job at literally putting themselves onto an island, in a weird way. That they've separated themselves.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, they've separated themselves better than they usually do from that mess in New York. I've really been impressed by like how they really don't feel like a New York team like they usually do to me. I don't know if this is just
they feel like a New Jersey team because they suffocate the life out of the other team and they're boring to watch.
They feel like a Southern Connecticut team to me. Like they feel like, you know what I mean?
Here's my view, though. If you look at their team, right, Anders Lee has had a major slump. He's clearly missed playing with Tavares, hasn't meshed that well with Barzal. Bouvalier's played pretty well, as you mentioned, Cizikas. But that's a team, you look at them, and they're one of those where the sum is greater than the total of the individual parts right now.
Yeah,
and I think come playoff time, that's why I thought Lamoriello may be aggressive. You need somebody that strikes some fear into people. I mean, Barzal does that. There's nobody else. Bailey, Lee, Bouvalier.
Don't worry about it.
Well, no. I mean, just from not from a headhunter perspective. I know what you mean. But
he strikes the fear in the corners.
Gotten a guy who's a scorer because that's the thing they need. Because look, I think they'll give any team a difficulty in the first round. Granted, we don't know if it's going to be Greiss or Lehner between the pipes. Need somebody who's going to be able to score to take some pressure off all the other guys when it gets really tight checking in the playoffs.
Well, that's why it'll be interesting what Lamoriello does in the next 10 days, because I honestly think they will be a tough out in the playoffs, but I don't think unless they go out and get themselves some scoring, some secondary scoring, or somebody who can play with Barzal, that they get past, say, the second round. I mean, they're defensively, they're very structured. Trotz has beaten it into them. They will be tough to play against, but they need goals. They really do need goals. And I think if Panarin is out there, or if Stone or Duchene are out there, Lamoriello has got enough prospects in that organization to make it work, to make it possible to make those deals.
Yeah, no, you're right. I wanted to do something else that was kind of brought up in the chat room, which I think is close to happening, and I'm not sure how close, but I was hearing a lot last night about a Braden Point extension, and that this, and the curious thing about that is, obviously they have to do it. I mean, they have to do it. But it's going to be a ton of money, So like the issue is, how much can you give Braden Point on this team?
Well, remember also, I think you got to factor in he's in Tampa, right? So any contract he gets the savings from the lack of state tax. So that has to be factored in, which helps them in terms of who they sign.
Well, and they have their own. I think it was Elliot Friedman mentioned, says that Tampa Bay is operating on sort of a Nashville system where they have their own self-imposed, not salary cap, but like a team cap, in the sense that you can't make more than Nikita Kucherov is making, which is 9.5. So I don't think Braden Point's going to break 8.5, which is what Stamkos makes. He's probably, if he signs a 7 or 8 year deal, he's probably going to sign, slotted behind Kucherov and Stamkos.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're avoiding the obvious problem of the offer sheet, or the complication of the offer sheet. But we know it's the worst kept secret in the world. Russ and I and everybody have been talking about the fact that in the summer they're going to move out Tyler Johnson, or they're going to move out Andre Palat, or Alex Killorn.
Move out Callahan the last year of a deal too.
Right, exactly. Callahan will be there for the Stanley Cup run, and if they win it, then the last year of his contract, he'll probably pay a second-round pick to have that contract go away. So
no trade. So
this is the interesting thing about this. Like, there was a very long stead belief that this is where Erik Karlsson was going to sign next year, regardless of what happened. Right? I think that Braden Point's play and is just, I mean, he's always been good, but he's absolutely very good. He's no question. Like some comparing, comparing him to Bergevin. I mean, like it's crazy. I mean, he's getting really huge comparisons, and he deserves a lot of them. that with his play, that really does change the Erik Karlsson market considerably, I think.
Honestly, I think that the talk of Erik Karlsson in Tampa Bay has waned throughout the year. I mean, he's injured again. I still think there's a chance that San Jose signs him, and if that doesn't happen, they might not, because they have Vlasic and they have Burns making big money, but there a lot of money's coming off the books with them as well. I mean, it could be Vegas, could be Vancouver. I think Tampa Bay has got too much invested right now to be able to afford Karlsson at what he expects to get, which he's going to expect to get close to what Doughty got, which is $11 million.
I do think Vancouver's got an excellent shot at getting him. I think he would probably enjoy playing with Pettersson. I think there's a good lore for him there. Quinn Hughes is going to be there.
Yeah,
that's enough to maybe get Erik Karlsson there.
We're going to see Quinn Hughes this year, right? Pretty soon, you think?
Yeah, they said after the season ends. It came out. I saw it yesterday.
Right,
and after their season ends, he'll be in Vancouver.
Right. How many games will be left though at that point?
Maybe a month, maybe like 3 weeks.
Yeah, maybe a month. Yeah, we'll see him.
That'll be the cherry on top of the sundae, Russ. What they'll do is they'll sign him to the entry level deal and burn the first year.
Yeah.
Unless he play. Well, if he doesn't play 10 games, let's see what's left.
No, I mean you can burn. Well, I mean there have been players who they sign him to a deal and they burn the first year after playing one game.
True.
You guys can, though, I thought.
I haven't been on the show a couple times this week. Have you guys gotten into the Bennington contract and the craziness of that?
Jordan Binnington has a contract where if he had played less than 27 games,
right,
he would have been I think it's a Group 6 UFA.
Yep.
But he's got to play, I think, 13 more games, which he will do, and then he's an arbitration eligible RFA.
It's interesting though. I mean, it's like that is there's a team in the playoff race. He's played incredibly well, and we're all fans of him here. I mean, we definitely have this.
I know we've been talking about him. People are sick of until this year. They were probably sick of hearing me talk about him and defend him and say how good he is. But now at least he's doing it. Which
I think the viewpoint is he had been surpassed by Ville Husso in the organization.
Yeah, they definitely showed that at the end of last year. We talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. It was always crazy. And I mean, this is great. He's doing this, but now the Blues are really tied to him, like in a big way.
The Blues had to be dragged kicking and screaming into giving him a chance. It was like the last resort. It was like, I think Husso was hurt. I think Allen was playing like Jake Allen, and they just said, okay, we have to go to Binnington. And
what if he gets hurt and can only play 10 more games?
Then he's a UFA.
And that's like such a crazy. I mean, that's a crazy situation to be in.
But this act, you are going to be able to write blog after blog this summer about the crazy, wacky goaltender market and free agency, because it's not only Bobrovsky, it's Varlamov, who I don't think is earning any extra money with the way he's playing in Colorado. And there are a couple others out there, and there are a lot of teams that need goalies. So I think at the draft, when Russ and I are in Vancouver, you're going to see a lot of goalie trades. I think
rub it in there.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeez, I didn't say it for that reason.
Well, the fun part's going to be what do the Devils do with Corey Schneider? 3 more years, $6 million a year.
Yeah, nobody.
Does Shiro buy him out just to get rid of that contract?
No, they won't do that.
No, nobody. They're hoping that he bounces back. I think that's the only thing they can do. That's the only thing they can do.
It's possible that they buy him out. It is. I mean, they've got the money to do it.
They won't do it. They won't, because they'll lose Kincaid. They'll trade Kincaid at the deadline. He'll bring like a 6th round pick. They have Mackenzie Blackwood, so they'll still be cheap in net for a couple of years, and they can hope if in 2 years Corey Schneider's not doing it, then they'll buy him out.
Well, the interesting team, and we've talked about it over the last month regarding goaltending, is Calgary, because Rittich has not played well of late.
I think he had an 898 save percentage his last 11 games at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, and I don't think Bobrovsky would waive to go to Calgary, even if it was a rental situation, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
I think he might, because I think Bob wants to go and win somewhere, which will raise his value. I think he might.
That can make sense. I mean, and it doesn't sound from the discussions that we've had with Kevin that Detroit wants to trade Jimmy Howard, even unless they get a 1st round pick for him. So I mean, Calgary is in on the Stone and Duchene and Panarin talk apparently, but I think that's sort of
And Hayes and Zook have been mentioned a lot to Calgary also several times.
Well,
I still think Hayes is going to Winnipeg. I think at the end of the day, he's going to Winnipeg, and I think it's happening soon. I don't think it's going to wait until the deadline.
Does that make? I mean, because Peter has said that they really need a playmaker as that number 2 center. Does Hayes really fit that
playmaker? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody views him just as a shutdown center, which is the role Vigneault had. But if you look at his last 2 months after the deadline, when he got moved into more of an offensive role and didn't start almost all of his starts in the defensive zone, he became a much better playmaker, and he's actually scored a bunch this year. So yeah, I think he can be a playmaking center there, and they need a number 2 center in that team.
Now, I think they can get a number 1 for Hayes in a deal.
It's going to be Hayes at number 1 and more. I think they're going to want a piece with that.
But not. I mean, if it's Winnipeg, it's not going to be like a number 1 in Logan Stanley or a number 1 in Vesalainen.
Looking at picking at the back end of the first round, so that diminishes the value of that first rounder a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole first 2 rounds now in the NHL are very valuable.
He's still a rental, Jan. I mean, you're not going to.
So is Rick Nash.
Yeah, but Boston, ask Don Sweeney.
Yeah,
but again, how many? Somebody should do a blog, and I'm sure they have. You go deadline by deadline deal. I'd say the larger propensity of them don't work out.
Yeah, but
use that as your baseline is kind of tough because then you'd have no deals.
The big deals that don't work out are the deals usually for big names. Like names are bigger than Hayes. Like it's like a Nash deal. Like that's a perfect example of a guy whose reputation precedes his ability. You know what I mean? And he ends up getting them to give a lot more for him because Hayes is is definitely had a great year and improved a lot, but he also is kind of like, I mean, there's people still remember, he's not the easiest guy to deal with sometimes. So there's stuff there too,
Well, okay. I mean,
I'll tell you who I would trade if I were the Rangers. If they could get a first, that's great. And then if you could get, I'll give you an example off of the
Jets.
Off the Jets, like if you could get Michael Spacek, who's never really been utilized, that would be a good player to get.
I would actually rather get Appleton, personally, in my opinion. I think Appleton wouldn't be a bad guy to fit there. What about Nick
Patan?
Honestly, I don't think
there's room for him. There's too many centers to begin with.
And plus, honestly, his value is so diminished, maybe as a third piece of a deal, but clearly not as a primary, secondary piece in a trade.
Okay, well, now Zuccarello. I mean, would you say a second-round pick and a prospect?
I think that's likely what he's going to go for. I mean, I know the big argument has been, it's interesting, especially on my blog, guys have talked about his production overall, which I get. And they're saying, well, you shouldn't play too much focus on his current production. My viewpoint is so let's say he was hot the first 2 months and stunk the last 2 months. His value would be diminished because of the fact he's been so bad the last 2 months, disregarding everything he did early on. So to me, this is the inverse where, yeah, his recent production has to play a part, and it does increase his value because of the inverse, it would decrease his value. So I don't know if they're going to get a first round. Obviously, they'd love to, but I think they'll get a second and a prospect who could be a useful piece in the organization. Although if you read it depends if you believe Brooks and everybody else. And Russ, you may probably know more than me. I don't know if Gordon knows what he's going to do right now because I think there's a lot of internal debate in terms of the direction they want to go with both of these guys.
Yeah, I think there is. That's fair. I honestly don't think they really know right this minute, but I get the impression that things – I know what X laughing at. That things are happening quickly with the Rangers. I don't think they're going to wait and see how other teams are going to play their hands. I think they're going to try and strike while the iron is hot. I do.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I've heard Zuccarello's name just this morning mentioned a lot with Nashville. I mean, I think that.
Well, if you give me Dante Fabro, it's thank you very much. I'd love to walk away, but I know that's not happening. That's not happening.
No, but the president,
and no offense to Zuccarello, because I think he's a fine player, and I think he'd be a good addition to any team. I don't think that's what Nashville needs to add a scorer, and Zuccarello is not a top end
scorer, Mike. That's the funny thing about it. If you put him on the power play,
he is a scorer.
And you put him on a line with playmaking guys, he absolutely can be a scorer.
You put him on a line with Kuris or Johansson even, or put him on a power play. First of all, creativity wise, he'll help other guys. And honestly, you put him opposite Fiala, given Fiala speed, that would be a nice bookend on a line.
I mean, I'm saying he's not in the category of that top 3 group that we're talking about.
But again, as Zach talked about, are you going to wait to see if Stone and Duchene and Panarin actually become available and get caught at the last minute trying to make a deal, or grab a guy that you think, especially if the cost is not – look, Zuccarello, getting him isn't going to preclude you likely getting one of these guys, save for cap, and you have ability to have teams eat cap to make a move. One is not precluding the other.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you also want to look at guys who have been good in the playoffs, like if you're Nashville, you really –
Yeah.
And, and Laviolette is always like, I mean, even when he was in Philly, Laviolette used to sing the praises of Zuccarello. This is a guy, who Laviolette likes, who, there's a lot of players on the Predator. The Predators players, definitely have a really good connection to the GM and to the moves that are being made. And a lot of Predators players are.
But I think this is the time of the year, and I think you'll agree with this, where teams with GMs and other advisors in the organizations, their personal beliefs override what the stats say.
Absolutely.
That's Rick Nash to New York because he had no previous playoff anything.
Yeah.
And was okay in the playoffs. He was maybe really good one year in the playoffs, but the personal belief seems to override it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the other thing that you have to take into account is some kinds of GMs, and Poyle is definitely one of these, likes to bring in guys that are just solid guys that aren't going to mess up a locker room.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And Zuccarello is that kind of player, right, for them.
Which is what he did with Brian Boyle, because Boyle is that type of player, and he knew Cody McLeod. I know he's not going to have much of an impact on the ice, but he knew Cody McLeod because he was in Asheville before, and he wouldn't rock the boat. Now,
Rangers' record is lousy without Cody McLeod.
There you go.
Here we go.
MVP, Russ. Okay, Jan, one more thing, and because a couple of Leaf fans have tweeted me asking about Adam McQuaid, and I don't think Kyle Dubas wants anything to do with Adam McQuaid, even though he's a right-hand shot.
Underestimate him, Mike. You never know.
Okay, whatever. But what do you think they can get back what they gave up for him, which I think was a 3rd and a 7th?
4 and a 7. It was a 4 and a conditional 7 that with him playing 25 games. Yeah,
no, they will not get back what they gave up.
You don't think you'll get back a 4 and a 7?
No. They will not.
I mean, look, I think they want to get a 3 back. I think if they just get a 4 back.
Go look at history. And a lot of times when the Rangers have made these trades, what they'll end up getting back is 1 pick. And instead of a 4 and a 7, they'll probably get a 4.
And I think they'll be actually satisfied with a 4.
But that's lesser value. That's what
I'm not arguing with you, but they've also turned.
It certainly sounds like
things I got to get to really fast.
They turned Mazanec and McLeod into 2 7th-round picks in 2020.
Okay, so. Mazanec, the fact that there was a desperation by Vancouver means they should have gotten like a 5th or a 4th. They were dying for a goalie, and the Rangers just handed him over.
Yeah,
and Markstrom is probably coming. Markstrom is back now, so.
Yeah, but they could have gotten more for him.
Maybe.
They had to get him.
Maybe.
It wasn't maybe. There was no other place for them to turn. Mike and I were looking at this.
Okay.
It's really true.
Okay.
Well, let's move on a little bit because I know you got to go, Jan. I'm sorry.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you jumping on.
Take care.
Make sure you read Jan and follow him on Twitter. He's doing great stuff. Okay, so 2 players I want to talk to. First of all, Bobrovsky, who last night did not look good against the Islanders, and now he, and that's it's 1 game, right? But it is also, I mean, Bob has been very solid, but there is a line on Bob, Russ, that we know about where pressure gets to him.
It's true,
right?
I mean, he has to prove that to us,
right? Like that he can get past this. There is no more. I mean, right now the pressure of this whole trade deadline has to be weighing on him in a big way.
Oh, I think it is.
I'll be crass, but the reputation of Bobrovsky in the playoffs is as a choke artist. He's never performed in the playoffs to the level that he has performed, to the Vezina Trophy level that he has performed in the regular season. And that, I mean, if a team like Calgary, like we were talking about before, was interested in upgrading their goaltending, that has to be something in the back of their head. It's like, okay, what kind of goaltender are we getting for the playoffs?
Yeah, no, and it's a big issue, and he's not made it easy on Columbus, to move him. There've been all sorts of situations that have happened there. So this is it's gotten to a very interesting spot with him. Columbus, I don't know if it'll get better if they just don't trade him, but I think they have to move him, and I think they're gonna try to move him, but you're definitely get the feeling from Kukalainen that he's not going to be undercut on either of these two guys. And if that's the case, this could be a wait out situation. This really could. He could just say we're going to go for it this year, bring in somebody else, and keep Panarin and Bobrovsky, and try to get.
I think Panarin's gone. I really do. I think Bobrovsky might be the guy that stays because I think that's the hardest value judgment to make. Is what happens if we get rid of Bob? We put Korpisalo in, and we think he's ready, and all of a sudden, last 10 games he doesn't look good. Then our playoff chances could go up in flames. So I think Bob has to almost be the insurance policy, and then you just trade his rights at the draft. But I think Panarin you could trade because I think Bob ultimately, even though Panarin's majorly important for scoring, Bob's still the foundation of this team, and it's going to be hard to pull him out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all about the restrictions because Bobrovsky has a no move, so he can decide to go wherever he wants, and Panarin has no trade protection at all, so they can trade him basically anywhere. And if I'm Jarmo Kekalainen and I know that he's going someplace else on July 1st, I'm trading him. Now it doesn't preclude you from using what you get in exchange for Panarin and adding something to maintain your playoff positioning. Yeah. But I think you have to move Panarin. He is an asset that I don't think you're a legitimate. They're in a situation similar to Toronto last year where I don't think they're a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. If you have a player, you trade him. You don't make him an own rental and let him walk for nothing. It's stupid. Yeah,
I mean, it normally is, Mike. I do agree with you, but I think that you can't just you can't.
Well, that's why I'm
saying how important it is for Columbus to win in the playoffs this year.
And that's why I'm saying Jarmo can play that buy-sell game, Mac. He can sell Panarin. So somebody was saying, like, if they get a return for Panarin, if they go out and they trade for a Jordan Eberle or something like that, and they pay less to get Eberle than they do in getting a return for Panarin, then they've profited by the Panarin deal, and they've, not improved their chances, but sort of balance their chances in terms of getting a scorer back and having an opportunity to win in the playoffs. If you don't get an equal return, if you get a return and then have to flip everything to get a player to replace him, then there's no point. Then you may as well keep him as an own rental. But I'm telling you right now, Panarin is going to yield the biggest return of any of these guys, with the exception of maybe Mark Stone. So you're going to get a big return.
You are, and if you can get somebody who can help you now, then yes, maybe.
No, I mean, there's no way they're trading them without doing that.
It's got to be somebody that can really help them now, that gives them a better chance in the playoffs. I mean,
it's either getting somebody for now in the deal for him, or getting somebody for now in exchange for what they get for him.
Right.
One way, it's sort of almost a quasi 3-way deal. You can basically say, okay, well, I'm talking trade with Boston for Panarin, and I'm getting Zaboral, a first, and this. Would you take Zaboral and this for that? You might be able to do that kind of deal. I mean, that's very possible.
I was just texted that Kincaid, as you brought up Kincaid, which is pretty interesting. That Columbus has interest in Kincaid, I should say.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me because they could extend him out.
Yeah,
not as number one, but they could have a tandem next year.
Yeah, and if they trade Bobrovsky, then they would need Kincaid as a 1A 1B with Korpisalo for the playoffs. I mean, if there is any truth to this, and I don't know why Florida would trade Huberdeau in a deal to get Bobrovsky and Panarin if they don't have any guarantee that either one of them are going to sign with them.
Oh, there's a wink there, Mike. There's a
wink. If there's a wink
agreement that's pretty strong.
Yeah, if they do that,
if there's a wink, nudge, then sure.
Especially if you're dealing with one agent, and it's like you're dealing with one agent for them. It's very easy for them to get that together.
Although my mother couldn't deal with my brother and I at the same time, so you never know, it could be problematic.
It's true too.
Who's your agent?
I think you're taking that into account.
Who's your agent?
My mom.
I should talk to your mom about it and see how that works.
Do we want to take a couple questions?
Yeah, I do have a question, and these are questions from the chat. One
question from the chat room. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got some questions in the chat room, but I think that the one thing I want to talk about again is Eric Staal, who has been a kind of a big name. If Minnesota is open for business, Eric Staal will get them something.
Eric Staal is the Paul Stastny of this deadline.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good comparison, I think.
Because nobody expected Paul Stastny to be available, and this has sort of come out of the blue. And just to reference that report that you were talking about from Mike Russo, where it sounds like Craig Leopold has given the thumbs up to Fenton to retool if he finds it necessary, and Boudreau has come out and said we're making the playoffs. So you sort of have a split in the presidium there.
I don't think there's a split, Mike. That's why I gave the speech that I did.
I know, but it's more exciting.
I think Fenton needs to retool. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I think they've given Fenton and this is actually the case in Minnesota in general is, ownership there has been very good at letting the GM kind of do their own thing.
Yeah.
And sort of, sometimes saying, the decision of whether we're going to go for it or not, whether you're going to make a big trade or not, always has to go through ownership in the big situations. But usually in deadlines, I find that Minnesota is one of the teams that just does. And I think Fenton really wants to take this apart. He wants to rebuild it.
But again, didn't New Jersey make a trade years back and still made the playoffs not that long ago, right?
Oh yeah, it can happen.
Yeah,
it can happen. Now the team that I hear with Eric Staal is really a good one, and this would be fun if it happened. That is Calgary. Now, can you imagine that? Because the Staals aren't they from that area?
Thunder Bay, Ontario.
They're from Thunder Bay, Ontario. Okay. You know what I'm thinking? I always confuse them with the Sutter family. The Sutters are
from Viking, Alberta.
But even without that, it's still an interesting place for Eric Staal to go.
I honestly, I think he could go to any one of those big three in the West. He could go to, and you know what? His salary is $3.5 million. Minnesota could get even more of a return if they retain 50% of the salary for the remainder of the deal. A team like San Jose could jump in on that kind of minuscule amount. They're going for it this year. So practically anybody could be in on Eric Staal.
Yeah, I know he's going to be, and what's it going to take? Is it going to take a first-round draft pick? Is it going to take a prospect and a first-round draft pick? I don't really have a sense yet as to what it's. Yeah. I'm working on it, but I don't really, logically it would say like a first for sure, or like a prospect that was been drafted in the first couple rounds, the last couple of years.
But before we take questions here, Darren Drager just posted on Twitter about 10 minutes ago. Oilers and Flyers in a holding pattern on Cam Talbot trade, as mentioned yesterday. Anthony Stolarz likely in return if they close the deal.
Yeah, they've heard that too.
Stolarz has to play a certain amount of games, or he'd become that free agent situation that you were talking about with Binnington too. I think he's got the same situation.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense, but that's not the complete deal. They're not just giving.
No, it's got to be something more than that.
No, but I know Hitch likes Stolarz. That could be Stolarz name came up in the past when Hitch was in Minnesota. But I think it's possible.
St. Louis.
I think Cam Talbot is a great fit for the Flyers. If they make the deal. What?
No question, he's a great fit for them.
He's the perfect because he's a backup who can play. He can come in as backup for them, or he can play more time. There's definitely a sense right now, and you can see the frustration in the Flyers is that they want to play. They only really trust Carter Hart, and even though they don't, and they don't want to trust Carter Hart every game, and they're frustrated. They can't do that to Carter Hart. They can't do that themselves. So when they get in these back-to-back game situations, they don't know, what to do.
Credit. In those other games where the Flyers defense has left them, he's really battled well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Stolarz played an incredible game against the Rangers. Was crazy. And he has looked a lot better than. And I'm happy for him because he's been through so much. You want to see him.
We didn't know where he'd be at this year. We were all honest about that. And
he's like the 5th string goalie in the beginning of the year. He was not even part of the Phantom.
In Lehigh.
I know. 3rd string in Lehigh. That's like tough.
Playing in Lehigh, he was just warming up with coaches and stuff at practice. That's it.
Now, another question from the chat room. And this is for Russ from Jason. I feel Wayne Simmonds will bring a good return. Oh, that's not what the question was. The question was, and it was the same. It was Jason who said that he believes if Eric Staal is the Paul Stastny of this year's trade, then Wayne Simmonds is the Rick Nash.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Not at all. I don't agree with that at all.
Because Wayne Simmonds is not done, and Rick Nash is done.
No, at the time Rick Nash traded, Rick Nash was a much better scorer than Wayne Simmonds is now.
Sure, but we're talking about we're talking about
1 year.
We're talking about Nash at 34 years old, who showed with the Rangers last year that he was pretty much done. There wasn't a lot left.
Right.
And that was why the return that they got for him was really good. And Boston found that out late in the season when he got concussed again, and then he was a shadow of his former self in the playoffs when he came back. So I think Wayne Simmonds can still play. I think he can still have an effect on a game. I think he's physical. Yeah. So I don't think there's any comparison between the two.
But here's what I brought up yesterday that you didn't know about. Yeah. I think Fletcher waited too long to trade Wayne Simmonds on his own, because now that Stone and Duchene are possibly out there and Panarin's still out there, Wayne Simmonds is an afterthought compared to those guys. I think if you'd have traded him a few weeks ago before Stone and Duchene got out there and we weren't sure about Panarin, he could have gotten a much better deal. Now I think if you're going to get a better deal for Simmonds, it has to be part of a package, because on its own, it's not as enticing anymore.
Fletcher
sure, but the real, I mean, and when I did my domino list the other day, I kind of did it in order of dozen players. I put Wayne Simmonds at like 4 on that list. But
that's right. But he would have been 1 a month ago.
But someone pointed out to me, and I think that this is important, that domino list really probably should have been split up into 2 lists, because Wayne Simmonds is number 1 on a team looking for
power forward,
aggressiveness, and scoring. Like, so that's the difference. That's what you don't get with any of the Stone, Duchene, or Panarin. All of whom will cost you a lot more than Wayne Simmonds.
Elbow you. Stone is not a wallflower.
He's not a wallflower, but he costs a heck of a lot.
He's a dual capable, is what we're saying.
But he's going to be so much more expensive to get than Simmonds. So
Fletcher would have improved his chances to get a big return on Simmonds if he had been as proactive as Rob Blake was on Jake Muzzin, where he traded him a full month before the deadline and got a really good return. I don't think he may get a first-round pick for Simmonds, but it's possible he doesn't.
Right.
Here's an interesting thing. If Bobrovsky gets traded, I've heard there's a very, very good chance that Jonathan Quick ends up in Columbus.
I don't think it's happening.
And I mean, if you think about it, if they need to go into the playoffs with a proven playoff guy.
There's a proven injured guy, and taking over for another proven injured guy might not go well with the fans.
There's cost certainty there because Quick is making $5.8 million. There's term left, yes,
right. But he gets hurt every year.
He gets hurt every year, and again, and I'm not slamming Columbus, but you've been down this road before with Jeff Carter, where he goes from Philadelphia to Columbus.
Right.
Quick is going from Los Angeles, the only organization he's ever known, and he's going to the Blue Jackets. You have to factor in whether the guy will want to be there.
Right.
No, you do.
It was true. I think literally after a week, we knew Jeff Carter didn't want to be in Columbus.
Right. So if
different people,
I know, but Mike's making a fair point.
Yeah, you do have to see if they actually want to be there or not. I do agree with that. There's no question about it. But I think that, the writing on Quick might see the writing on the wall and look. And if you're Quick, okay, and you really want to win still, how many teams can you go to where you can say I could be the starting goalie for the next 3 years, and that team could actually be in the Cup race every year, and that really is Columbus. I mean, that is where he's at. That's
well, maybe you could say, hey, what about Calgary?
Yeah, but I think that Calgary still believes. I mean, I know the guy's been struggling lately, but I honestly have always felt that they were going to go to Mike Smith in the playoffs anyway, because at some point. But I still think Calgary believes they have this. They have a long, they do have, and they also have Calgary has other prospects too. I mean, Columbus doesn't have anybody really. If Quick goes in there and helps them in the playoffs, win a couple playoff rounds this year, he's the goalie for the next 3 years. I mean, honestly, that's where I see it. I mean, that's where he's going to go. I mean, Calgary's maybe, but I don't know. What else do we have? Anything else, guys?
Any more questions in the chat?
I'm looking. Hold on.
Well, just while you're looking, Elliot Friedman said yesterday on one of the Sportsnet shows during the Leafs Golden Knights game that Kyle Dubas was in Anaheim to watch the Ducks and Canucks on Wednesday, and speculated there might be some interest in Brandon Montour. I'm sure there's interest. I just don't know whether Bob Murray is looking to trade a defenseman who's under control for another year, making around $3 million. It would have to be
on the top pairing. I don't think they're ready to do that.
I mean, it's great that it's great that they're interested, and I don't doubt that because he's a very good player. But unless the Leafs are interested in giving up Kapanen or Nylander, I don't know how they make that deal possible. So, I mean,
all right.
We'll
so
see.
Esmer asks, he's wondering what the situation is with Taylor Hall. I think the only situation with Taylor Hall is that with him having injury problems and not being in there, it affected the team a little bit, but he's still way over a point a game, and he's still their number one guy, and he's still going to be their number one guy going forward.
Yeah.
There's no issue. It's been injury.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
All right. Stu wants to know if there's any market for Spezza. There definitely would be a market for Spezza, but Dallas is so far in the race.
Yeah.
Dallas isn't going to move him.
Yeah.
That would ruin their power play if you move Jason Spezza right now.
Yeah. He's a $7.5 million cap hit, so they would have to retain salary. I don't think they're going to go there. I mean, he's been better with them this year under the former Denver coach. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Russ, who's their coach?
Jared Bednar?
No. Dallas's coach, the former Denver. Jim Montgomery. He's been better under Montgomery than he was under Hitchcock. It was fire and gasoline. So I think he's staying, and I think there's a possibility Dallas adds before the deadline because they're in a tight race right now.
Jonathan wants to know who'd be more valuable for the Islanders, Panarin or Duchene. I think it's Panarin because I don't think Duchene is a Trotz guy because he's not good on faceoffs.
And I think
if you had to play him in the middle, that's going to compromise his system a little bit that way.
And I think there's a chance that they could convince Panarin to stay there, whereas I don't know if Duchene would stay there.
Esner wants to know if the Red Wings would trade Vanek. Yes, and unfortunately we are going to write yet another rumor here where we're going to have to talk about Thomas Vanek, which is just like he's definitely in the rumor Hall of Fame. There's no question about that.
Alexander Semin yet?
Yeah, he definitely has. No, because it's just the sheer number of years. I mean, Simmonds was very powerful for a few years, but Vanek is like going on a decade now of just. I feel like
if the website was in business when Mike Sillinger was around, he would still be the undisputed champ. But
Walt McKechnie.
No, Mike
Sillinger played every team. I know, and we actually were around in the beginning. I remember writing Sillinger trade rumors. We were around towards the end of Sillinger's career.
Mike Suitcase Sillinger.
What are the Sabres doing? Adam Ziller wants to know, and this is
I think they're eating breakfast.
This is a really fascinating question because I just have no idea what the Sabres are doing.
Well, being here in Buffalo, I can tell you that there are some rumors about them possibly shopping Jason Pominville. He's coming to the end of his career. He's a big cap hit, but they might retain salary if they could find some place where. Thing is, they're in the race right now, so I can't see them moving Pominville if they are in the race. They're not moving Skinner. I think they're talking with Skinner about a new deal. I think it's going to eventually happen. It may not happen before the deadline, but I think it'll happen. So, and he's got a no-move clause anyway, so they could be marginal. They could sort of tinker around the edges. They may trade a Nathan Beaulieu. Mm-hmm. They maybe could add somebody to boost their defense. I don't think they're interested in giving up. According Friedman said yesterday, they've got the 3 first-round picks. They would trade one of them, but they're not going to trade them for a rental. They would trade for somebody who has term left. I think the thing they need more than anything is somebody who can score that's not named Eichel or Skinner. If they could find that, I think they would go for that. But it has to be somebody
on the right path. That's what I've been told. But and this year, they've been better. Obviously, they're in the race. Yeah. But how did they jump as far as maybe people wanted to do? Or they looked better in the beginning of the year.
I think
they're right where we probably all thought they would be, like in this.
Yeah,
I'm very close. But Patrick Barber asks, "Is Jeff Skinner going to be available to the media?" Yes. To other teams, no.
Right. Agreed.
Not yet. No, he's not available. Probably not even in the media knowing Buffalo right now. So Goss is value, and this is the last thing we'll get into. We got to go, but
yeah, he has value. Of course, he has value.
He has value, but the Flyers will not move him until they know what's going on. With what's the name?
With Sam Morin?
No. Why am I losing my mind? With Provorov.
With Provorov. Oh, with that contract, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's no movement at all with the Provorov contract. So if there, and there's fear that Provorov could end up being, next year's Nylander, and there, if he sits out for a long time and and Gostisbehere is gone, the city will lose their minds because
they won't have much of a blue line, that's for sure.
Right. They have to, in actuality, they probably should be moving him because they really do have control over Provorov, but. Short term, I don't think.
I'm going to tell you this. I think they have control over Provorov like Winnipeg has control over Trouba.
No, because Trouba can be a UFA. Provorov.
No. But when Trouba was his age,
right?
Yeah.
What Russ is saying?
That's true.
Control there. That's the question.
That's true. That's a good point.
What Russ is saying is basically, okay, if after his ELC he comes out and signs a 2-year bridge deal, then basically he's walking himself step by step towards free agency after 7 years. You want to get him locked up long term.
The only thing I can say is that I have heard and this is like dossier rumor stuff. This is way off the chart, but I've heard this for sure. And I've heard this about Werenski and I've heard this about Provorov. That there is rumblings that if they don't like their contracts for next year, they could play in Russia, and that's the only thing that they could. No, I don't. With Provorov obviously being Russian, maybe he wants to do that, but I don't think so. Provorov is one of the most North American Russians I've ever been around.
Yeah, but he wouldn't. But the idea is, even if they say they're going to play in Russia, they'll wait 2 months into the season before they even decide that.
Yeah,
that's a leverage negotiating point. That's all.
No, it is. But I think, and I do think that you're going to have a couple guys. Also,
don't you remember in October the talk was that William Nylander was going to play for Avangard Omsk. I mean, yeah. So great, go ahead, make $2 million in Russia, get it out of a paper bag. Instead of
Matt Sundin would play for another team, and then he didn't.
Yeah, you're right. Who thought that?
On that note,
someone sent me this text, which I thought was really funny. So the Flyers traded Bobrovsky, remember way back when in 2012, for a 2012 not in 2012, but for a 2012 second and fourth rounder and a 2013 fourth rounder. Flyers used those picks to get first 2 picks we got Stolarz and then Lear, okay,
right.
And then the fourth rounder was used to reacquire Simon Gagne.
Yeah, it's not a fair thing to say, though.
I know, but it's fun to follow these trades.
That happened that made them trade Bob. They didn't really want to trade him. They didn't. They were in a spot.
Yeah, they were in a spot, and people are rough on the Flyers for that. And
they are.
And that's also, they're saying, well, this is the Flyers. They had a young goalie. They weren't patient enough with him and all that stuff.
Right. That wasn't the case.
It wasn't the case. There was other stuff going on with Bob, which is starting to go on now in Columbus, unfortunately. And it's the same kind of stuff that. So then, actually, to play it out, Lear was traded for who? Who was Lear traded for? Bailey, just recently, right? Lear was traded for Bailey, and Stolarz could now be dealt for Talbot. So at the end of the day, you could be looking for Bobrovsky, for Simon Gagne, Bailey, and Talbot. There you have it.
There you go.
That's the deal.
I'm sure Simon Gagne is sitting at home laughing about that.
Yes, or doing some kind of extreme skating sporting event up in Canada, which is Simon Gagne is known to do.
He just wakes up and looks good. That's what bugs me about him. But he's a good guy.
I used to go to the same bank as him, and I would see him all the time for some reason. We would bank at the same network.
I do something similar, Russ. I just wake up.
Yeah, well, every day you wake up's a blessing, Mike.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Remember, Without the Buzz, it's just hockey. You can support us at patreon.com/hockey. We really appreciate those who do. It really means the world to us. And we will talk to you on Monday. Stay tuned today. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to be writing a lot, and I'm going to be making a lot of calls. So it's a Friday. Stay tuned tonight, too, because anything could happen tonight as well. So remember, Without the Buzz, it's just hockey. We'll talk to you then. Talk to you soon.